The other thing I just wanted to bring to our attention, and now we'll sort of settle more into our practice, is just about this, this idea that I sometimes put out for us to explore about our own awakening of intuitive intelligence. So this is one of the very primary functions of yoga, is to assist us in awakening this intuitive intelligence. The interesting thing about it is it's not something that you can think about. There's no map of the mind that will take us to this. So the moment you start thinking about it, it's not it. The moment you start analyzing it, it's not it. You start to try to find a way to this intuitive intelligence, it's not it. It's like like how do the clouds know when to rain? Yeah. What is this dance between the tides and the moon? And how is it that birds and butterflies feel this urge to migrate? This is all intuitive intelligence. And this is exactly what we have in all of our systems, in all of our processes. So your mind will tell you all sorts of things, but at a very fundamental level, we are not broken. There's nothing separate about us. We don't ultimately need healing, really. It's just this coming back to this simple recognition of just knowing ourselves as presence, knowing ourselves as this open-ended, spacious, aware, intelligence presence. And from this place, as we sit with that, as we quiet into that, as we relax into that, this is the awakening, if you will, the reconnecting. It's a recognition of this intuitive intelligence, this intuitive awareness. So let's just open with that, just sitting with this part of ourself that if it, and I'm just assuming, maybe not, maybe it is very, very refined for you, and then just be with it. But for most of us, we're really wanting to open up more space to allow this intuitive guidance to be more and more present with our life. So nothing to really think about, but just a simple allowing of any recognition that wants to emerge. Now the meditation of yoga. Good. So I want to begin with this very simple neck twist. And you can, I'm going to show it on the larger bolster. You could also use the smaller bolster for it, works well. It really depends on how safe you're feeling in the neck area. You could also use a pillow or a couple of pillows, a little softer, maybe a little less height. So it all just depends on what you have and how you're feeling. The big bolster is kind of high, so if you feel a little tentative or not safe, maybe bring your height down a little bit. So very simply, what we'll do is we're going to just lay on the belly. Yeah, lay on the belly. And then let's place the left ear on the bolster. So the only thing to keep in mind here is with the right hand, it can just be off to the side, relaxed on the floor. And this is what you'll use to kind of support yourself if you need to release it a little bit. And the most important thing here is with the, did I say the right ear? And I meant the left ear. So let's place the left ear on there, as I wanted to show you the left shoulder. So the left ear on the bolster or the pillow. Yep. And then let the left arm relax back like this, and don't put the shoulder up on the bolster.
relax the shoulder off of it. So whatever you have, pillow, small bolster, rolled up towel, don't have the shoulder up, because we want the weight of this left upper side to draw you into the neck here. Yeah, and then the tendency will be for the chin to want to come down like this a bit, but you can angle the chin up just a slight bit, and this will be unique to how you're feeling in the neck. So I have the left shoulder relaxing down, the height kind of pulling me into all these sort of nuances in the neck itself. And then if it feels too much, then just please be safe and bring it down a little bit more. You could even just have a towel folded up a little bit and you'll get some benefit of it. So it's a very, I understand, a very sensitive area for a lot of us, where a lot of our pelvic lumbar tension migrates up into the neck area. So set yourself up with that, and we'll just spend some time relaxing here. Just take the time to, make sure that you're able to, let most of the body relax. So this, slowing down of the body positions is very interesting, because obviously we're using bolstering and, geometric patterns of the body to bring awareness to places of resistance or pain. But at the same time, we want as much of the body relaxed as possible. So if you feel any time a bit of a struggle, uncertainty, not safe, always best to adjust, always best to err on the side of caution, so you can really explore the the sensations as they're arising. So we move away from this idea or this mentality that we're using the positions to release something, to push through something. We're not really wanting to do anything except relax in a lucid presence with what we're feeling. And again, just this, reminder, your mind is going to tell you all sorts of things. We're attempting to recede from that level of chatter and habit of the mind. This intuitive awareness, this presence of oneself. The mind didn't create this. This is who we are. So it's really just a recognition. So physical sensation, mental imagery, emotional vibration, all of these things will come and go. Yes, and we have a great capacity to observe them and to witness them, but we don't need to necessarily listen to them.
we're allowing ourselves to feel ourselves. And when I say self, I mean self, capital S, self, presence, awareness, consciousness. We're allowing ourselves to create more space to feel this sense of self. Tremendously expansive, tremendously intelligent. And then everything that we experience, all objective experience, just arises in this and fades and comes into focus, leaves focus. So if you have your left ear on bolster, blanket, or a pillow, I'm going to recommend you move very slowly here. This has been a significant amount of time, so things can kind of settle in and tensions can be somewhat exaggerated. So make sure you feel the presence of your right hand, your right arm, and then just gently push yourself up and try to straighten out the neck. I'm going to suggest before we go to the right ear to push whatever bolstering you have and just bring the head down either on the floor or on the back of your hands and just have a little movement, just kind of a swaying, circling, and just so you can feel what that compression, is doing in there. Quite a bit, actually. And then if you feel ready, but take as much time as you need, you can bring your bolstering back in. And this time we're going to put the right ear on the bolstering. And again, from this side, I can show you, we want to keep that right shoulder off of whatever you have so it relaxes down. The tendency might be for the chin to tuck in. You can angle that up a little bit, but just kind of play with your range of motion in your neck. I know, and this side may not be the same, probably won't be as the other side. So you can raise things up a bit. You can lower things down. Now this time the left arm will be supportive. So that left hand, that left arm out to the side. The right shoulder relaxes down and we'll go back into it. sometimes it's really enough just to stand back in a great sense of awe and respect for your body, because on some level, the body is just this universe of mystery. And it's a very lovely and compassionate and interesting space to be able to sink into without always having to reference the chattering of the mind, the continual evoking of memory knowledge, and just see what your experience would be if you were just able to relax into this mystery, your own, if you will, your own personal cosmos that doesn't need to be directed, because really internally nothing is really in charge. It's a brilliant, it's beyond brilliant, it's beyond comprehension how the systems are communicating and feeding and nourishing and connected with each other. So just to relax into that with respect and awe and appreciation, sometimes that's just enough, and it gives this dominance of the mind a bit of a break. Not to mention, this is the seed of awakening, reawakening this intuitive intelligence. So again, let's move out of this with just great caution. That hand, arm out to the side. So begin to apply some pressure, and then bring your head, body up a bit. Start to straighten out the neck. And this time, just draw yourself back into whatever a child's pose is most comfortable for you. So, and place the head where you will. You could just bring the head on the hands if you like. Bring the forehead to the floor. So anything that just feels just right. We'll just spend a little time here. And again, have some movement in this upper part of the body just to kind of work these little kinks out. Good. So let's come on up now. I'd like to keep moving into the neck and the shoulders after that, especially. So what I would invite you to do, if you're able to in any way to bend your knees back, you could sit on your heels. You could sit between your heels. You can pull a little bit of something to sit on. You could pull a lot of something to sit on. So this is not necessary to bend the knees back, but it's a nice sort of secondary benefit if you're able to. If not, you can just sit with your legs out. This works just as well. So I'm going to do something little to sit on since we'll be here for a bit. So just make sure you're not straining in the knees, always to feel safe, but you can maintain a bit of compression for some time. Yeah, this is a lovely thing to just do on a daily basis. Compress and release of the knees so that they can reproduce the synovial fluids and just keep the fascia layers nice and open. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to take the left hand. Maybe I'll just turn around to show it. I do think everyone can hear me. So we'll take the left hand arm, bring it around towards the small of the back here. And then if you could hold on to the right elbow. If you can't get the right elbow and you can get the forearm or even the wrist or the hand, if this is even a lot, you could roll up a towel and just pull this back with a towel, or you could just hold it back here. But if you're able to get a hold of that elbow, that would be the starting point, that right elbow. Yeah, and this is just meant to restrict that left shoulder a bit, so you'll feel that. So this is just a nice start. And then if you could just bring the chin up, so the bottom of the chin is parallel to the floor. Usually in these things, there's a tendency to let the head drop, and it releases some of that tension in the shoulder. But we want to accentuate it a bit. So bring the bottom of the chin so it's parallel to the floor. If you're holding the elbow and you'd like to put that right palm on top of the thigh, just a nice place to rest it, but not necessary. So good. So now from here, let's bring the right ear towards the right shoulder. Again, trying not to let that chin drop down too much, but if that's where it wants to go and you're feeling some interesting sensation, always follow the sensation that's calling you. I'm just really making suggestions here. And just really making sure you're aware of the weight of the head. So it's, in addition to the restricting the left shoulder, the weight is pulling in all sorts of interesting pathways here. And then if you'd like, you could bring the chin up a bit, up towards the ceiling. And just try to soften into it, try to relax into it. And as much as possible, we try to let go of any need to diagnose this or analyze this, but really be with the felt sense. Just be with, how does it feel? What are the sensations of resistance, discomfort, softening, melting? And then from here, you can either stay very still if you like, if you're in an interesting place, or now the invitation is just to move the head around wherever it would like to go. And then if you come upon something interesting, maybe tight, feels a little stuck, sluggish, dehydrated, then just press into it with great gentleness. Good. So let's just bring wherever your head is in all these gyrations, let's bring the head back up to a straight spine. And then you can release that left hand from that right elbow if that's where you're at. And then we can just shake that out a bit if you'd like. And you can interlock your fingers and press your palms up to the ceiling. If you can straighten the elbows. And just kind of go laterally, go side to side a little bit, just kind of feeling the hips here. And I mentioned earlier the connectivity between tension in the pelvic sacral area up into the neck and the shoulders. So sometimes we can just intuit this. You know, it's not, whatever you're feeling is never static. It's never in one place. It may sort of collect there a bit, but the body is vibrating with aliveness. How could it not be? Okay, good. So let's relax the arms down. And if you're ready, we'll do the other side of that. So this time we'll take the right hand, obviously, bring it along the low back, and just try to hold on to something. I'm recommending the elbow if you can get there. If not, the forearm, the wrist, the hand, a towel back there, or just put the arm there. If you're at the elbow and you want to put that left hand on that left thigh, that's always nice. So now just take a moment before we move the head at all, just feel this restriction of the right shoulder. And then once again, just to make sure we bring the bottom of the chin parallel to the floor. And then ever so slowly, left ear to left shoulder. And then we'll stay here before we do anything. So we'll just stay here with it for a bit. And then if you'd like, you can just bring the chin up a bit. So this is just, again, really all of the Hatha yoga is just playing with the angles of range of motion. So it's always up to you. And it's very interesting with something like this, just the slightest micro movement can just send things, you know, in very interesting places. So just be curious, be interested, feel it. You know, try to always maintain a sense of just open-ended, non-judgmental curiosity. And just a willingness to listen at this intuitive level. So when the mind starts to chatter and the mind wants to, you know, dominate, it's okay to relax that. You know, let it chatter, but no need to engage it. No need to get entangled with this, you know, complicated mechanism of memory and knowledge and all of these stories that we think we know what's happening. The sensation is enough. The felt sense is enough. And then again, if you'd like to move, you might want to stay still, or you may want to now just let the head go to all these various points of range of motion. If you feel the shoulders tensing up, try to relax the shoulders. And as I was saying earlier, not just simply awe and a sense of wonder and respect for the body in general, but for this mechanism of discomfort. This is a powerful, brilliant mechanism that your body has to communicate with you. And so part of the relaxing and part of the nuance of this approach to yoga is really honoring all of these sensations without even labeling them. Of course, sometimes we have intensity and pain and discomfort, but that's your body communicating something. So this is what we're really trying to settle into. We're trying to settle in and sit before the variety of sensation with a sense of deep respect, that the body has a capacity to teach us like really nothing else has. Good. So wherever you are, you can bring the head back up so the neck is nice and straight. You can release that right arm. You can shake it out a little bit. And then once again, let's interlock the fingers, whatever grip works for you. We'll press both palms up to the ceiling, try to straighten the elbows, and just go side to side. So kind of just here, just shoulders over hips. We won't go back or forward too much, but just a little bit of movement here. Press up, straighten the elbows out. Good. Yes, yes, yes. And then you can relax the arms down. Okay, good. So if you have the big bolster, use the big bolster. If you don't have the big bolster, you can just do this with a couple of pillows. Yeah, so I'll just show it with the pillows. And what I would like you to do from here is come forward and place the quadricep muscles, the thighs, the upper thighs on top of either the big bolster or the two pillows like this, yeah? So my belly area has some space for the floor. And then we'll come up onto the forearms so the elbows are under the shoulders, and we'll just relax here for a bit. You can open up your legs a little bit past the hips. So what this allows to not be on the floor, like I said, it allows that belly area to relax into the backward bend. So the lumbar can relax even more than if we had the hips and the stomach right on the floor. So just feel that. So the bolstering is kind of low here. It's kind of on the thighs, a little bit below the pubic bone, I would say. So the belly can have just free range. And then we'll just relax here for a bit. And then any movement would be quite subtle, but that would be primarily with the head and the shoulders. So if we move the chin up a bit and the shoulders back, we're going to contract more into this lumbar area. That's good. If we relax the head down and relax the shoulders a bit, it's going to release some of that contraction. So who knows? It's just such a compressive area for most of us. So just kind of play with it a little bit and work with it here. And if you're not able to fully relax the belly or you're holding it a little bit, see if you can just relax it. Sometimes just to breathe into it a little bit, especially since we have the space here. And this is such an interesting study as well, the relationship between this central core area and the muscles and ligamentation of the pelvis and the lower lumbar area. The way that it affects the way that the pelvis tilts and the way the shoulders are in relation to the hips is such an interesting thing just to feel this. The core area relaxing, the lumbar area contracting, how we move head and shoulders, how we breathe. Nice. So from here, I want to go back into that child position. Just pull yourself back. You put your bolstering aside, and whatever is comfortable for you here. The main thing with this, sometimes we forget that this is really a nice gentle forward bend. So you can keep your knees and feet together. You can open them a bit if that works better for you. Again, you can just put the head on some bolstering, the hands. You could even tuck the chin in a little bit and deepen it into more of a forward bend. So just make sure this is working for you in terms of releasing that backward bend, but also having a bit of a forward bend here. Good. So you can uncurl out of your child pose now, and let's lie down and take a rest. If you want a little something under the head here, depending on what came up for you during that first neck stretch, and then the the second shoulder thing. So just make your head nice and comfortable. We want to just relax everything here. So whatever you need to do that, that would be good. I think one of the reasons I was so inspired and genuinely touched by just seeing the presence of this gentleman, Mr. Overton, at 109 years old, because it wasn't even so much about the individual, but it was just seeing the amazing capacity of the life force itself, and how it just expresses through everything, and the amazing variety of the different vehicles that it expresses through. It's just rather incredible, and this is why the yoga suggests to, take a rest from having to figure everything out, believing that there's such a thing as perfection, and feeling this wholeness. So this life force, this aliveness, this is who we are. Yes, this is what is just always present. And this is what I mean by we're not broken. Nothing is broken. We don't need healing, because we are the direct expression of this life force. This is the yoga. This is the recognition of this wholeness. And so it's just inspiring, it's inspiring to see the variety. It's such an incredible show. It's such an incredible drama that we get to see, that it's, sometimes we think it follows certain rules, and other times we see it doesn't follow rules. And, we get to just, sometimes this is the beauty of sitting quietly, is sometimes we can just sit quietly and appreciate that the actual pulsation of our cells, and the flowing of our blood is a creative act. The fact that we can see and hear and touch and smell is the life force being creative. And I think sometimes it's, when we can see that, when we can just really see that and experience that, it helps us to lighten up a bit. We can lighten up and be just not take it all so seriously. That however the life force is coming through us, we want to make sure we celebrate that, and that we don't get into this micromanagement, perfect, figuring it out, and find time to relax. And there's nothing to figure out. We can enjoy the experience. And certainly, we want to tweak things, and we want to grow and explore, but we can also trust, and we can also trust that the intelligence of life has no beginning, has no end, and we just appear. We appear, we disappear. We appear, we disappear. So we get to experience ourselves as something, as everything, and then as nothing and emptiness. And we can sometimes intuit that. We can feel that. We can feel that in the breath. We can feel that beneath the surface and the lovely dance between mind and heart and body, emotions, life, world. Okay, so let's come on up if you're down. And yeah, we're going to use the big bolster. And if you don't have the big bolster, just put a few blankets there. Yeah, so a couple of things for this, because I want to stay here for a while. So you're going to have to, a few things to set it up that would be good. We're going to arch the back over this. So if you're using pillows, make sure you can tuck them into the lower back as much as possible. Here, maybe I'll just show you that, because I don't know how many people just are using pillows. So if you're going to use pillows, they work just as fine, but we don't want to support the upper part of the torso. We want to tuck everything in a bit so the upper body, especially the shoulders, can come back. Yeah, so with this is perfect. I wouldn't really need too much for my head. If I was going to use the big bolster, I might. So even if you have a bolster, you might want to try something with the pillows. The idea always is to stay as long as possible. So pillows, if you're going to use the big bolster, I suggest maybe sitting on something, because these bolsters can be a little bit stiff. So sitting up on a blanket allows the pelvis to come up enough, the hips to come up enough, so it's not as intense. You may want it with that. I want to keep it low though. So again, so the shoulders are coming towards the floor. Put a little something under the head if you need it. The other thing I'm going to recommend is fold up a little blanket or towel and just put your heels on it. Yeah. So over time, sometimes the pressure of the heels can bring attention into the legs that we don't want. So I just want to set this up, something for the heels, sit on something if you're using the big bolster. If you've got some pillows, make sure they're tucked in and the shoulders are not supported up. And then the other thing you might want to consider is to just bring a blanket over you, or some warmth, something at least over the torso. Because as we slow down and have so little movement, the metabolism can shift a bit, and we don't want to get chilled. We really want to be able to relax and just be able to physically and mentally surrender. So take a few moments here to adjust. And again, sitting on something can bring that, can bring the hips up, so it can release more of that tension. It's not as intense, I should say. Or if not, you can bring it down. And this you can add, whenever you need to. You can remove it whenever you need to. We just want to set up a nice, broad, full back line, backward bend. No tension in the neck. We've already been there, so the head is supported. Arms can relax out to the side. A little softness for the heels, and maybe some blanket up over you so you can be here for who knows how long. And again, always checking in. We never want to feel like we're committed to the posture. If any sense of it doesn't feel just right, any sense that we're not going to progressively soften into it and relax, and ideally, we want to forget that we're actually in a posture, so then the body can just start to naturally reveal and express itself. So this is often where insight comes, when we're not looking for something, we're not needing to micromanage the position or be preoccupied with the sensations, but we're just drifting. And then oftentimes sensation can lead to insight. I mentioned earlier that these bodies that we have are really a universe of mystery. And so one of the interesting things when we're exploring, the nature of the body, the nature of the mind, it's very curious, really, what all this imagery actually is that comes and goes. And is it in any way, separate from the more visceral sensation of the body? Because in some ways, we're not really so much thinking brains, but we're more feeling minds, if you will. Because any sensory information that comes in is actually being vibrated into the microtubules of the myofascial system. Yeah, so we receive everything at this sensory level first as vibration into these very, very refined microtubules. This is the very beginning network of the fabric of the fascial system. And then it gets converted into the brain. Yes, it gets converted into the brain, and then the brain will configure it as it will and then communicate it to the nervous system. So by time we get imagery, by time we get memory, by time we get what we would call a thought, it's already moved through the myofascial system. It's vibrated into the compartments, if you will, the mechanism of the brain, and then transfigured in a way and then expressed through the nervous system or other systems as well, obviously. So this gives us a very broad paradigm to explore the relationship. And it's really a semantic relationship. It's not an actual relationship, because relationship implies, two things, three things. It's just one thing, this system. So we need to use language, but it's very interesting to just feel, to intuit. Yes, this is where the intuitive intelligence comes in, is that we're just this alive mechanism that is basically translating vibration into sensation, into imagery, into feeling, into emotion. Very slowly, with great sensitivity, I'd like you to begin to breathe consciously, but nice and slow, and feel that you can breathe so you're feeling it horizontally. Yeah, so the rib cage opens side to side. And this is a more common way of feeling the breath. But we can feel the complexity of the micro movement when we inhale and how it moves horizontally. So have a few of those, and then feel we can also access the breath vertically. So do a few inhales and feel the movement up the solar plexus into the chest and actually up into the throat. So we have these two ways of really feeling the inhale breath, either horizontally or vertically. And just let the exhalation allow you to slip into a place of emptiness. So that's a place of just complete openness, emptiness, spaciousness, nothing to do there. But then the inhalation allows for exploration and nuance, either side to side or from the depth of the solar plexus right up into the throat area. And just stay with it as long as until you fade back away from it. this vibration that I was mentioning earlier that morphs into a physical or mental or emotional configuration. So at this level, this is still physical, yes, a tangible vibration, negative, positive, male, female, hot, cold. So we get to contemplate and we get to even relax through that and realize that what's really vibrating is awareness itself or consciousness itself. So the body is simply a contraction, a vibration of consciousness. Your mind is simply a vibration, a contraction of consciousness. All of your feelings, your emotional history, at some level is just a contraction, a vibration of consciousness. And this is beautiful to explore because the yoga is suggesting that we can relax back into that, that we can start to identify that. This is what I meant earlier, that nothing is broken. We don't need to heal because our essential nature is this presence of awareness. And the mind didn't create it. The mind doesn't create it. It's a simple recognition that this, at the most fundamental level, the ground of our being, is who we are. And then we get to play the game of being alive in this configuration. So let's again just come into a very gentle, soft, deep breath. And this time, just breathe into your whole body and let the breath then go beyond this supposed container of the body, the skin, the envelope of the body. Just breathe yourself to whatever limit you care to. And again, on the exhale is just a waterfall into emptiness. And if you're feeling sensations, let them expand out into space as well. If you're having any kind of thoughts, let the thoughts turn into residue and expand out into space. But let the breath open space for you. So we're breathing in, filling the container, and then letting the breath go beyond the container of the lungs, beyond the container of the envelope of the skin, and just out into the, I guess I would say, take this personal cosmos of the body and let it just merge with the universal cosmos, and let the breath open space for that. But then you don't even need the breath because this is essentially who you really are. So one of the ways that I like to come out of these ridiculously long backward bends is certainly first to put your feet on the floor. But we'll take our time here. We're going to have a nice rest here. But it's nice to roll side to side onto the rib cage. So this is lovely for a lateral flexion. You can bring the top arm up over the head. But it's also nice just to release anything that's built up in terms of muscular fascial tension. So you can just roll side to side onto your ribs as many times as you need to, nice and slow. Do make sure your feet are on the floor somewhat to stabilize that lumbar spine. And then when you feel ready, two things you can do. You can either
shuffle back and put the pelvis up onto this bolster. Get out of the lower back. Or if you're rolling side to side, you can just roll off and either come onto your side, or you can go flat to your back, or you can go into a child's pose, whatever you need here. And then we'll settle in for a rest after all of that. I would say the primary reason why yoga just puts so much emphasis on this, this self-remembering, cultivating this, inner spaciousness, this inner consciousness beyond the limits of the body and the mind, is that this forgetting of who we are, forgetting our true nature, is really the source of all our psychological suffering. We run around, trying to fix things and trying to improve ourselves, when yoga is saying, just relax back into the essence of who you really are. And don't take the persona, don't take the game too seriously. Don't take the dream, this dream that we found ourselves in. So even when we refine it, yes, and I do understand that we can get to this place where we realize that, oh, right, I don't need more stuff. I don't need more degrees. I don't need more knowledge. I don't need more money. But I need more refined and esoteric spiritual practice. But that's still needing something more. That's still needing to add on to something that doesn't need anything added on to. So this is why our foundation, the foundation of yoga, is a sense of relaxation. Seeing if we can relax so deeply that we're just simply conscious. And then whatever arises in that consciousness, it just arises. But the fabric of the consciousness never changes. We're always aware. The purity and the spaciousness and the infinity of our awareness is always there. It never changes. I am always aware. And then what I am aware of changes all the time.
So this is the power, if you will, of rest and relaxation, and just drawing it all in, drawing the consciousness in, drawing the sensory, the stimulation of the outer world in, and just relaxing. It's very, very powerful, very, very therapeutic. Okay, so let's come on up, and I want to come into a lovely half frog position. And, I say lovely, and if it's not lovely to you, it can be someday, especially if we don't avoid it. So what we're going to do, and you may want to have something, bolster, blankets, pillows to lean on, depending on how your hips are doing. So have something nearby. But what we're going to do is we're going to keep the right leg extended out. Yeah. And I'm just going to turn. You don't have to turn, but I want to show you what we're going to do with the back leg. So for the back leg, we're going to open it around back. So I'm not tucking it in so the thighs are together side by side. I'm just opening it, and I'm pushing it in back of me, so I get a little bit of tugging on this left hip. So we're not trying to, stretch it all the way out and then force this left hip. We just want a little tugging. And then depending on how your hips are torqued and out of maybe a little bit of alignment, you may be leaning over to the right at this point. This is why I'm suggesting something to lean on the right side. So if you're way over here, and I know this can be an awkward pose at first, then you can lean on something. Yep. So we want to come as forward as possible, not off to the side. So, build up your bolstering as much as you need to. If you're not quite to the right, you could put the bolstering on the inside of the right leg and come forward this way. Yeah. And then if you're not, if you're it's also the extended leg hamstring, which is a whole nother story in addition to the hips. But if you're able to come more sort of center and maybe come to the forearms or let the head rest on the hands or a place like that, you could also do that as well. So I know at first this can be really awkward, but it really is powerful for the pelvic realignment, opens up the hamstring, certainly for the hips. So don't worry if it's feeling awkward, can always adjust, but just try to relax as much as possible. And I'll try to keep the time reasonable. And the key then to not struggling with this particular posture, or actually it's the key to not struggling with anything, but let's just talk about the posture, is when you start feeling the resistance, don't resist it. It's the resistance to the resistance that creates struggling, not the resistance itself. The resistance itself is just neutral sensation. Might be uncomfortable, but it doesn't have it doesn't have a story with it. It doesn't have anything but texture and sensitivity. So the subtlety of this practice, the nuance is to feel something resisting within the body and then just don't resist it. Just see if you can stay present with it. See if you can draw your awareness right into the center of it and then let it expand. On some level, it's just density. It's just where the body has become dense somehow. And we're just trying to soften that. We're just trying to allow the warm water to melt it away. So we want to be very, very careful and sensitive with that. And it doesn't need to just be physical resistance. It can be a certain kind of awkwardness, impatience. It can be the repetitiveness and the judgment of the mind telling you something. Doesn't matter. It's okay. Let it just be, because it's going to change. And the more that we can observe how everything is changing, then we can relax into what doesn't change. We can relax into this spacious awareness. And then we start to just feel that, oh yes, I'm just here to observe this. I don't have to put everything in a compartment and put everything in a judgment and fix everything. I can just observe the comings and goings of my experience.
Good. So let's come on up from here. I'm hoping that we have the right leg extended, but it's okay. So come on up. If you want to ooh and ah and ay, that's always good. And then let's try to get this back leg, the left leg, around front, and just bring the soles of the feet together. And then if the hips are wanting support, you can put whatever you need under the hip or hips, or really sort of the lower thighs or the knees. So feel free to support this up if you need to. And then let's just come forward with the soles of the feet together in a very relaxed lower back. So we're not lengthening and stretching. Nope. We're softening, unengaging, and relaxing. And again, letting the weight of the head really lead the way. And then if you get down to a position where it's like, whoa, that's a lot of torso weight and it's going to maybe pull into the lower back, not good, not safe, bring in your bolsters front. Yeah, you can bring in bolsters or this pile of blankets and towels and just relax onto it. And you'll feel it, again, where the lower back, if that's where you're feeling it starts to resist. This is why we support the posture, so we don't have to resist that resistance. We don't have to second guess it or feel unsafe. We can just simply relax into exploring it.
another way we can think about this resistance is we often call it our edge. So it's a lovely place of comfort, discomfort, this edge. So in this particular approach, we want to lean into that edge, lean into that resistance, but then soften. So it's not static. It's very conscious and deliberate that if we lean into that edge and we start resisting the resistance, there's going to be contraction. The body's going to clench. But if we lean into that edge, if we lean into that resistance and are able to soften, the body's going to feel safe. And then at some point, the body itself starts to invite us. It's a direct invitation of the body. Yes, go a little deeper, change something up. No, withdraw, let's rest. So this is this is really the study of the somatic intelligence, not a formula, not a map, but direct contact with how you're feeling moment to moment. And it's changing all the time.
Good. So let's come up from here. And let's do the other side of that lovely half frog. So this time we'll extend the left leg out front. And again, it's just really unique to your hip here, your right hip this time, how we press this leg back. Yeah. So we just want to, again, feel a gentle tugging on the right hip this time. And then if you're going over to the left, put your bolstering there, whatever you need to rest on, especially since you want to be able to surrender the whole upper body. So you feel free to bolster as much as possible so you're not holding the upper body separate. It's still a forward bend, so there's still a softening of that lumbar area to soften into it. If you don't need it on the left, you could put it on the right, or again, you have the option to maybe come to the forearms, or it just depends on these, lots of little things. It's an interesting position to really relax in, because it's, for a lot of us, it's awkward, and there's multiple points of tension. It's sort of like this biotensegrity of pulling and pushing, and just the way the body works. So we don't need to worry about that. We just need to feel it and position properly so you can come to that edge where you can lean into the edge and then melt into it and relax into it and soften. And this term biotensegrity, it comes from people that are studying this myofascial system at a very, very magnified level. So not at the sort of anatomical level of, shoulder and lower back and hip,
but the actual, the things we can't even see with the naked eye, what I was calling earlier, these microtubules. And so the biotensegrity is how the interconnection is so incredibly connected that a little movement here reverberates into a little movement there, a little movement there reverberates into, so the whole system is just like this coordinated effort of intelligence and communication and connectivity and aliveness. So at some level, what we're doing is we're just opening up these pathways of aliveness. So what we were calling the fundamental vibration that moves into these sensations, et cetera, has room to move, has openness to move. And we know when we feel that way, when we feel a certain flow, we move with a certain flow, the systems are able to communicate. We're not stiff and achy and feeling dehydrated, but we're feeling alive and feeling, you can actually feel the life force moving through you. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to be alive and feel it. Good. So once again, let's come on up, if you will, if you can. And let's bring that back leg around, again, if you can. And we'll go right back to that forward bend by bringing the soles of the feet together, softening and just moving nice and slowly. You might want to sway your hips a little bit here, shake a little bit of it up the spine. So again, just relax into it, support the thighs in any way you can. And if you feel yourself starting to extend out, trying to bring the head towards the toes,
Try to resist that. How deep you go is not important. How much you relax the lower back is, because this allows it just shifts the fundamental relationship. When we say myofascia, in general terms, we're talking about muscle and fascial compartments or fascial restrictions, lots of ways to explain it. But the elongating, the forcing, the pushing, the muscles want to take more of that. If we can relax the muscle, then we can get into these fascial webbings a little bit more. It's certainly not that black and white, but you can kind of feel that more just relaxing, and where the resistance is a little more, less muscular and more at this sort of ligamental place. I think one of the biggest and most important shifts in my practice was when I genuinely started to learn how to use pain to support my practice. So at a relatively immature practice, we're trying to get rid of the pain, whether it's psychological or physical or emotional. But at some level, the pain's not going to go away because we're just fragile beings, yes? So that's a shift. In a way, that's a maturity. It's starting to understand the gift and the intelligence of the pain and how to use the pain to support the practice. And certainly that can be very relative, because sometimes we can open, yes, pathways, we can rehydrate, we can make mental and emotional adjustments, but still the edge of discomfort is a sort of inherent way of being in the world. But when we can use that to support our practice, to follow the threads of it to intelligence, to really start to appreciate that the real gift is embedded within the pain, and how to open that gift, it becomes quite profound. And I think the same thing for, this remembering who we are, reestablishing ourselves as these infinite beings of consciousness. Just, we are presence, we are whole. There's I don't have the quote in my head, but at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna finally says to Krishna, like, oh, thank you. I finally remember who I am. You have helped me restore my memory of who I am. And in the beginning, Arjuna was not sure how to act. He was not sure what to do, fight or not fight. And so then Krishna explains to him that once you remember who you are, then you know how to act. You don't have to make decisions. You don't have to complicate it, or
you just know because you're coming from this place of self-remembering, of self-realization, of awakening. And I certainly don't mean awakening in this esoteric sense. Awakening is not an improvement on reality. Awakening is making direct contact with it. So simple, so profound, and sometimes so slippery. So let's just come up out of this bend knees for a bit, this forward bend, and just open the legs out. Let's just finish it off by just coming forward, just pretty much about hip width distance or maybe a little bit wider. And let's just come forward with legs out for just a couple of moments here. Good. So let's roll up from here. And let's take another rest. So you can just lie down and relax, and we will take a brief shavasana here. And I do have to say, I think collectively, it's a really profound and important time to reconnect with this intuitive awareness, to lose connection with our gut feelings. It doesn't feel good, to have to keep everything in the thinking mind, to have to always be navigating intellectually. There's no safety there. It has its place, certainly, but the more we can awaken these gut feelings and trust them, and this intuitive intelligence, and trust it, it takes us, it's trusting life to be where we need to be and do what we need to do. So part of this practice on a psychosomatic level, the mind and the body, is seeing that the anxiety that we're holding in the mind for whatever reason is felt in the body. We can feel that. And so when we have a physical practice that, it's very obvious it's not just a physical practice, but when we start to lean into the anxiety of the body and see that it reverberates from the mind, that we relax the mind and we see that vibrates into the body. This is very, very powerful. And this is a reconnection that I don't think we can, underestimate or overestimate. And especially in this collective time when we're just, we have access to so much information. And sometimes information, yes, leads to transformation, but we want to have transformation at many, many layers, at many, many levels. We want to feel that the body itself, the cells themselves, the heart itself has intelligence to share with us, has the capacity to allow us transformation, and then how we hold that balance personally. And it's unique for all of us. And this is the wholeness. This is the yoga. The yoga is just the recognition that we are whole. There is no separation of, mind, body, heart, spirit. It's just language. But the language is pointing to this wholeness, this presence, who ultimately we are directly. Okay, so much for all my chattering. Let's come back to either the large bolster. If you don't have the large bolster, this is the one position where the large bolster really is, it's lovely for this, but I understand if you don't have one. So then take a blanket and we'll just make something that you can fold up so it approximates a nice little padding, kind of like this, yeah. So basically you have the same height of this. It's pretty much the same. I just prefer the bolstering for this. So I can show you both ways to do this. But if you have the big bolster, let's sit on one end of it. And I'm gonna suggest, and I like to put a little, if you're gonna put something for your head, only really for comfort, not to bring the chin down and make it like a big pillow. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm sitting on the end of the bolster, and we're gonna just drape the whole back line over the bolster. And right here, it's got me right between the shoulder blades. What I'm gonna suggest is wiggle down to the shoulders touch the floor. And for most of us, this will come right below the shoulder blades. And this is what I'm suggesting. And then that blanket is just really for comfort. Yeah. So we've got this end of the bolster right below the shoulder blades, opening up that thoracic center and doing other things as well. And then with the legs for here, open them out a little wider than you might think you want to. Open the hips a little bit, and it just also feels nice and stable. And then the arms can just relax to the side. Yeah, this is kind of like a supported fish pose. And then, wiggle up and down, get it just right. But I'm suggesting below the shoulder blades. Yeah. So that's with the big bolster. If you don't have one of these, then take that blanket that you've padded up and place it in approximately the same place. So
Yeah, a little bit below would be good, I think, below the shoulder blades. Yeah, I can't really even, it's different, but I can't explain how it's different. Really for this, because I don't have the support in the lower thoracic spine, I have to come up a little higher. So my shoulder blades are on it. That's it. Yeah, it doesn't have that lower support. So your shoulders might not touch the floor if you're using the pad, but same basic effect. And then again, let the legs open out, let the arms relax. This is also a very nice position to go back to exploring what I was talking about earlier about feeling the breath horizontally and all of that micro movement, but also feeling it vertically, especially through the tissues of the solar plexus and the chest and into the throat.
And if you are staying with a certain consciousness of your breathing and feeling it, one of the subtleties of applying this compression into this mid area is this is a connection of the thoracic spine to the respiratory diaphragm. So if you can start to feel in that sort of below the sternum area up under the rim of the rib cage, when you take an inhale breath, that dome-like muscle, very interesting and complex, is compressing down a bit into the organs of the torso. Very, very good to do. When you exhale, it's compressing up a bit, connected again by a fascial connection up to the pericardium of the heart, the fascial matrix that holds the heart together. I don't know if it holds it together, but it encases it, you might say. So that exhalation allows that sort of, massage of the heart muscle. So you can just sort of intuit this, and it's nice to open the breathing this way. Open the breathing and the massaging of the organs of the heart, and just feeling the loosening and the freedom of the respiratory diaphragm frees up the breathing. You free up the breathing, you free up the body. You free up the breathing, you free up your mind. I think another reflection of really maturing in our yoga practice, or just in our practice of life, which I really consider the same thing, is that things become simpler and clearer and easier. And so we, if we're in a yoga posture and moving through a series and, exploring a nuance of our body mind, we can apply that. But certainly in life itself, and it doesn't mean that we cannot take on great endeavors and do great things and even do complicated things, but to to really be able to be grounded in a genuine simplicity, a genuine clarity, and a genuine sense of ease. And this is one of the other sort of primary pointers that we're moving in this direction, and something that I think is really worthy of exploring. I've explored it quite a bit myself, is that, all of this talk of, awakening and coming into the nature of the true self. This doesn't mean we're opening a door to these, extraordinary mystical experiences and, fireworks and special powers. It's quite the contrary. It's an appreciation how extraordinary the ordinary really is, and how to open our eyes and look at the incredible beauty and mystery of life, and just be awake to it, be awake that we have the capacity to experience. So not just what we're experiencing, but that we get to experience, not just that we're aware of something, but we have awareness. And I think this throws a lot of us off, or can be a primary, in a way, an obstacle, is that we believe spiritual practice and yogic practice is leading us to some final, sort of mind-bending experience that's mystical and beyond comprehension, and it's a special place. But just the ordinary machinations of life, and how we can appreciate and use the qualities of simplicity and the clarity and a sense of ease. And then life goes on, experiences happen, objective experiences there, but we get to rest and we get to feel safe within this sense of the observer, the witness, the pure awareness. And we're not so thrown by change and uncertainty, and we just appreciate the mystery of the body and the mystery of the cosmos itself. Good. So from here, it's always nice to bring the knees up towards the chest, and as you do that, the more you bring the knees up, the more it turns into a forward bend. So do this carefully, because we're going in the opposite direction. But especially if you have the bolster, it's really nice because you still have that compression there. And even if you just bring the knees up a bit here, you've got to watch your balance, yes, but you're kind of moving into compressing those torso organs. So you can kind of rock back and forth here. I also like to just really come all the way up and over if that's accessible to you. So that'll help the bolster slip away, but then coming into this full forward bend with the knees bent, nice and compressive for the entirety of the endocrine system. Yeah, so just kind of play with that and work with that. We're going to come into just final rest. So as some of you know, I've been just ending class without any final after hellos or goodbyes. So you can then, at this point, if you're still with me, you can go into final Shavasana. You can go into any counter pose that you need, or you could sit up with me and close. And just to make sure that I'm clear with everyone, the way that I opened class tonight, I'm not advocating that you smoke cigars, drink lots of coffee and whiskey and ice cream. I was just inspired by an individual that seemed to be flourishing and enjoying life well over 100 years. So yeah, so we'll just take a few moments of silence here and just sink into the quietude of our beingness. And nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one to be. And namaste.